You all here, a lot of pressure, I have to say, like a first panel, that's always a lot of pressure. But I would like to invite our two panelists to join me. And first of all, Filip and Bartek. So yeah. I'm going to tell more about you in a second. So. Okay. Okay, Bartek, that's... Okay, so let's sit down.
All right.
So Filip, you are head of independent model review and regulatory compliance in HSBC, but you are also author of a book called The Big R Book, From Data Science to Learning Machines and Big Data. And Bartłomiej, you are head of the project management team at the Bank PKO in Warsaw. Like, do you want to say something about yourself except that?
Yes, of course.
What's your connection with artificial intelligence?
Well, artificial intelligence is something that keeps me busy and awake already for many years. I usually kind of live more in the future than in today. And I started preaching about AI probably 10 years ago, that it was really something important, that it would transform the world. But it's so exciting that those things are happening today. And so I bring that subject to many different universities. For example, the MBA program in Warsaw, in Kraków. Lots of things are happening now, and it's all going faster and faster.
Bartek?
Yeah, this is also similar in my case. I'm really following the AI topic for many years, and I'm focused to combine the knowledge I gather from these developments with the progress of the financial services industry, banks specifically. And throughout years, in different roles, in consulting roles, in banking roles, I'm looking for the use cases for the real beneficial application of the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I think it's very important what you said. You're involved in artificial intelligence already for like many years. And it became like a huge and hot topic recently because of ChatGPT actually being released exactly 1 year ago. And everyone suddenly started to talk about artificial intelligence. But we are not focusing today on generative AI. We are just focusing on AI as a whole. And the first question I have to both of you is like, what are the current use cases of AI in the banking? How banks are benefiting from AI at the moment? So maybe let's start with Bartek now.
Okay, so I believe that it's very important to distinguish two areas. We have like a kind of traditional artificial intelligence, which is being developed for many years, and we have also a lot of the discussions since last year about large language models and artificial generative AI. And this is important to distinguish these two, because when you ask Claudia about what our banks are currently doing, the answer is that there is a lot of experience in application of this traditional artificial intelligence in the areas where you can actually find important correlations between the data, regression models. So all the possibilities to find the hidden information within the data that you have in your bank. And it is developing, and it brings a lot of benefits, but it's important to see a big difference compared to the generative AI, because in the second case there is much more, and this technology is much more promising. So if you ask what banks are currently doing, so I would say they start to experiment in generative AI, but they are also quite advanced in the area of I would say traditional AI.
Filip?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, AI is a very important development. It is being adopted at an exponential scale at this point. And that means that about everywhere in the bank, and I suppose banks aren't even an exception. They're everywhere in every organization. You will see people thinking about how we can use AI to produce more, to do things more efficient, to save costs, or to do more things, or to do things that we didn't ever before. for example, there is another bank in Spain that a few years ago they decided, well, we are in lending and we're good at lending, but you know, there are these customers that live in that area of the city that is poor, and you know, we can't give credit cards to those people because you know, it's too risky. And nobody did. And they said, well, let's use AI, and they teamed up with IBM, and instead of using the traditional banking data only, they started to use data that is publicly available, like streams of Facebook and so on, which basically meant that they were able to mine thousands of columns in their data and not just a few hundred. That also meant that they, in the end, were able to build a credit model that was stronger than what they could have otherwise, and it was very successful. They had more sales, they had more things that they could do, and they were able to reach customers, more importantly, that otherwise couldn't have credit cards. So with that AI, we were able to service customers that wanted to do something with their life, but otherwise would have been blocked. I think that's a beautiful example of how AI can be used for good. Now, credit is typically one of the areas where we are really very careful to use AI, because many of the methods, and for that particular example, was based on neural networks, and that is that is a type of AI that gives the most surprising results. And part of the story is also, well, we know exactly how the model works, but it works with billions of parameters. And so we, as humans, well, we can't understand why it does take a particular decision. Now, that is dramatic in credit, because the customer can go to the court and say, look, I didn't get a loan, and that is because I'm black, I'm a lady, or whatever that person feels discriminated for. And if you are using your AI model only, well, then it's pretty hard to explain how the model made that decision. You can say, well, gender wasn't part of the columns that was fed in. But if it uses all the information, and for example, it knows that you went to the ladies' school for whole Trinity, well, then it probably assumes that you are a lady. And so the thing is, those machines can use data and construe it in such a way, they will find patterns, even if those patterns are accidental. There are so many other examples. Marketing, for example. Well, actually, any organization uses marketing. And there it is much less harmful to make a mistake. And so there we can, of course, be a little bit more liberal in our approach. So, and it also, you don't really have to explain why you send a letter to a certain customer. So marketing is another big area. Customer service is another big area. Know your customer is another area. Banks have a lot of responsibility about knowing the customer so that they can later on check if sanctions are respected, for example. And so a bank of the size of HSBC, well, it pushes through every second 50,000 payments. Now, there is probably something like 50% chance that every second there is a fraudulent transaction, a transaction that shouldn't go through. And sometimes that is because the transaction goes to Iran, sometimes that is because somebody called an older lady in Sheffield and said, well, I'm your grandson and I need urgently money, and they're trying to set up some scheme. And so there is so much information going on, 50,000 payments per second, and you want them to go as fast as possible. So you actually have to rely on machines to check those payments. And then to find that needle in the haystack, that one payment that you want to stop and investigate further, again, you have to rely on AI. See, the interesting thing is, the AI will basically say, okay, here is a payment, you have to look at it. And it goes into a queue, and then humans will look at it. And humans will use their discretion, their overall general intelligence to find out if it has to be stopped or not. Maybe let me also stop here.
You actually answered my next question already. Because I wanted to ask, like, how do you see the future of AI in banking? Like, what can be improved? How to improve the efficiency? So, Bartek?
Yeah, I think to add to what Philip said, it's important that we see a lot of the opportunities for optimization and automation of the process where there is no direct interaction with humans. So we see that AI will help a lot in the areas where human used to work with the data and the computer. If you have a scenario where one person is talking or working with another person, we don't believe this area will be, I would say, optimized by AI. But all the different aspects, working with different data, which is either structured or not structured, this is a big subject for optimization. And also, if we are discussing the future, how this AI will develop, we can already observe some new trends. So one of the most visible and obvious applications of generative AI, large language models, is in the area of the knowledge management. So this will change how we interact with the information we have when we work in our organization. So to be more specific, and you provide more clear example, is when you look for some specific information. Imagine you would like to learn how your organization is, what policies are applies to you in relation to your vacations, what type of vacations or a day off you can take because of the different regulations that you have in your country. Normally, what you would have to do, you would have to find a specialist, a person who could provide you this information. Probably it would be very difficult for you by yourself to find that data in a respective company policy. But with AI, there is a amazing space of the improvement, because you can use your language, natural language, and you can ask the specific question with your language, with your words, and the generative AI will really understand what you are asking about, what is the sense of what we are asking, and it will find the relevant information in the procedures that are provided to this AI. So it will help to answer your specific question in a way that you will understand. And that's a huge difference. It's a game changer, I would say, comparing to the traditional AI, which would be, trained for the specific purpose. In generative AI, you don't need to train it specifically for the task you are giving. You can ask basically any question which is related to the data that you have, and you can find quite useful answer.
May I continue a little bit on that one? I think we have to be very careful with the words that we use. I don't think it is completely correct to say that AI understands your query. Basically, even those large language models, they use trillions of parameters, and it's really amazing. You ask them a question, and they answer in a way like it seems that they understand you, and it makes sense what they answer.
Yeah, and it makes you believe that they are saying the truth, actually. Yeah.
Yes, but actually what is going on, it is just taking the string of words that you have put there and finding what would be the next word. It basically finds the word that has the highest probability to be next. And then given that string with that first answer, the next word, and it's just predicting the next word. So it is actually very simple in logic, but to us it really seems like it has its own logic, even identity, personality. It's amazing. But may I come back to your question about the future of AI? It's a fantastic question. And honestly, that is the only question that we really can't answer at this point. You have been at airports, isn't it? And when you see people walking around, they're all pulling their luggage, and you realize the luggage has wheels. And your luggage, when you look at it, it has wheels. Now, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. Most people were carrying their suitcases. That was a revolution. It made sense, and it got adopted really very fast. Interestingly enough, that was invented already in 1956. However, we invented the wheel probably something like 7,000 years ago. And we have been using the wheels to carry luggage in a certain way on carts pulled by horses and stuff. But we never thought about putting it under luggage. And so predicting where an innovation or an invention is going to bring us is nearly impossible. The AI is actually a technology underpinning wave of development in capitalism as we have never seen before. Well, the waves we have seen before, we have seen the steam engine, the steam train, the motor car, the chemistry, the electronic computer, and so on. But let's take the motor car. So that was the new technology, or actually new technology between quotes, in the 1920s that fueled the economy. That was full of innovation, things were going on, stock prices of the companies producing were going up. The technology as such already existed the concept as such already existed for a while. And we were just learning how to use electricity instead of candles in the motor of a car, so to speak. And that has transformed society in a way that you possibly couldn't imagine before. The way we do things, where we go, everything has changed. The way the streets look like changed because of that motor car. And AI is very much in the same space. It will transform society and it will transform the world in which we live. And we really can't even start imagining today where it is going to end up. It's an amazing thing. And then when you look back at the motor car, well, we invented it maybe more than 150 years ago. It really started to work something like 100 years ago. And we are still improving on it. And so it will be for AI.
Bartek, do you want to add something? If it comes to the future of AI?
I mean, I agree that the future is it's very difficult to predict. However, you may observe some trends, and because the nature of the generative AI, because we believe, I think we all agree that generative AI will be the next big trend in the AI in general.
I have a question to the audience now. Who didn't use ChatGPT yet, ever? Like, who never used ChatGPT? Never, ever.
Nobody.
Okay, we have
One
okay,
person, yeah.
okay.
We have
Only
one
one person didn't use ChatGPT yet, so that's quite impressive.
Yeah, but the nature of this technology, from the technical perspective, how it works is kind of similar to the AI that was previously. And this is why I'm saying about that, because this is maybe some good indication about the predictions that we can make, how the future would look like. Even I fully agree, Philippe, with you that it's extremely difficult to have the right prediction. But what is interesting, when you look into the traditional AI, where it solves a very specific, well-defined problem, like recognize a person, recognize what is in the image, categorize it, things like that, you can see that the level of the improvement is crossing the level of the human. And you could imagine that this is growing and developing, and it's achieving the level of the human, but it's not exceeding, because from our evolution, we are suboptimal or optimal in how we interact with this world. However, when you look and compare different domains like picture, like video, like sound, you will see that AI is just crossing that boundary, that limit for the human, and it's passing. So looking from the traditional AI perspective, seeing that it's becoming more and more powerful and effective, I would say that for generative AI, it will go similar trends. So for the moment, the experts are saying that the level of advancement is like for a 9-year-old child. That's the level of advancement of general understanding that large language models such as ChatGPT are having now. But when you think about that these large language models are developing so fast, then you may come to the very, very unusual conclusion that if this AI is developing faster than the humans in terms of the years, you may come to the conclusion that these children which are at the age of 9 would never come out with the discoveries without using the AI, because the AI will be even better to their capabilities. And this is kind of, I would say, scary, but it's important to be aware of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can look at patterns and you see what is happening, and so you can predict what is going to happen on medium term. Absolutely, that's a very great point. And for example, if you look back even 2 years ago, what would have been your prediction about what AI would do to which job it would replace first? Well, my guess would have been cleaning the floor, building streets, building houses, the jobs that are rather procedural and that can be automated very easily. At least that's what I thought. But now that we have these large language models, generative AI and so on, what you see is that actually there is so much high added value on intellectual work. And so that is probably the big revolution. And that is a thing that will happen on short term. Within 10 years, salaries of welders will exceed salaries of high-level managers. And actually now already, if you look in Poland, you know, somebody who is a good welder and good at a job, well, he at 20 years old will earn something like 25,000. So if you study mathematics and you go in the AI, well, then you are in a hot sector of employment market. And then you will do your studies and you will finish when you're 22 years old and you will work hard for 10 years and you will have that salary that the welder had already at the age of 20. So lots of things are happening. And I think that in the first phase, that AI assistant will be the key thing that we see. Whatever job you will have an AI to assist you.
But Bartek, I remember our discussion, like I think it was 2 months ago, and we were talking that there are some predictions about the year when artificial intelligence is actually going to be intelligent enough to make decisions. So which year was that? 2037?
I believe it was 2032, and it was based on the AI community who was like making, I would say, bets. It was like the average value from different people, so it was like a survey based, and it was the question was there about when the AI or generative AI will become artificial general intelligence, and this artificial general intelligence is the artificial intelligence which is at the human level. So it's like comparable to us completely. Although there are different definitions of what AGI is, but the common sense is, as I mentioned, it's like when we will have the tool or maybe a solution which would have the capabilities comparable to human.
So we have 9 years until robots kill us.
I'm not sure if it's going to kill, but we don't really know, and that's also the problem. I believe that humans are not fully. They can grow the neural networks, but it's very difficult to really understand what is happening between the neural networks layers. It's very difficult to understand. The complexity is so great that it's difficult for scientists to really come to the conclusion why this model is working better compared to the another one. They are trying and seeing the results, and that's how they are improving it. But it's really difficult for them to completely understand how it works. They have general understanding, of course, but it's not like complete understanding.
And what about regulators? Because when crypto started to be popular, it was like back 2016, 17, when banks actually got involved in crypto. Like that sounds bad, but like interested in crypto. Regulators jumped on the topic straight after, and there was a couple of regulations coming up, like FCA is interested, SEC is interested. What if it comes to artificial intelligence? Are there any like regulations already being prepared? Is anything implemented already that banks should be aware of?
Regulators are very, very much interested in that. They're responsible. They know that it is going to have a massive impact, and they know that, well, using it in a careless way, it can have dramatic impacts for individual groups of people or whole society. So there is a lot of thinking going on. I believe in China there is already regulation in place. The European Union is going a little bit slow, but it's a very tricky thing to do. AI is a technology, it is a tool, and it is very much like a motor car or a knife in that way. You say knives, they can kill people, so let's forbid them. But if you do that, you won't.
How are you going to cut
You can do so much
Yeah.
more with a knife, and you cut your bread, for example, and those things won't work anymore. And even if you forbid knives in your country, then there is for sure another country that doesn't forbid knives, and they will learn how to use those knives. And so very much the same with AI. Banks, well, even just think about cybersecurity. That's extremely important. Banks, they are cyber houses at this point. Everything is electronic. That is really the core of the business what a bank does. So you have to keep it safe. And banks obviously are an interesting institution for hackers to go after because they have a lot of money. So the balance sheet of HSBC is $300 trillion. That is massive. That is multitude of the gross domestic product of the whole world. That's 3 times larger than the gross domestic product of the whole world. So there is a lot of price to go after for hackers. And of course they're using AI, and of course they won't mind that you have something in the law that forbids the research around AI or something like that. They will just do that. And if you don't have the research, you just don't have the defenses. It's very much like firearms and say, look, they're not nice, so we won't use them, but the next country next to you is using them. So you must be very careful not to stop the research because that you can't, and that is happening anyhow, and that is your line of defense. The thing that you have to do is say, look, we have guns or knives, so let's have laws that it is illegal to kill each other with guns and knives. Now that makes sense. You can control agency by laws, and so very much the same for AI. I think there is a lot of room still to think about how that is. Then, of course, you have the whole question about, okay, well, as you were saying, Bartek, AI evolves faster than our brain. Our brain is pretty much the same as 5,000 years ago. It evolves a little bit. IQ goes up somehow. Well, that seems to have stopped now that we're using the mobile phones too much. But of course, correlation is no causation, and not insinuating anything here. But the point is, AI follows an exponential evolution. And so at some point, it will be better than whatever we can imagine. Also, if you look at creativity, AI can design things that we could have never have thought. And they are structurally more stable, they're stronger, and they look fantastic. So at some point, AI will going to be more intelligent as us. AI will be better in taking decisions. Like, for example, there is a lot of information about court cases. And you see that if you look at all the parameters of court cases, that people who had their verdict at 11 a.m. were worst off. Why is that? That is because the judge is hungry, not because those criminals were worse. And so you can think of, well, actually it does make sense to have an AI as judge. Actually in US they already have AI assistants that say, well, that's maybe the right approach, but still you have that human overlay there. So it's still the AI assistant. But at some point, those machines will be way better, not biased like we are, and so on. And they will work 24 hours a day. Like, why would you have a human taxi driver in the future? A human taxi driver will make more mistakes, need taxi breaks, personal breaks, lunch breaks. And he has to sleep, and so the taxi isn't working for a large part of the day. You will have taxis that work autonomously, taxis that will work 20 hours per day, taxis that will always be there when necessary. Maybe we even don't own cars anymore in the future because it doesn't make sense. You just have an app on your phone, or even you don't have phones anymore. You just think of what you want, and some machine will read your mind, and a car will show up. Okay, maybe.
Bartek?
So I will come back to the topic of the regulation. Of course, we all agree that these regulations are really important. And as we don't have a lot of experience how to approach these regulations, this is probably one of the reasons why these regulations are coming slowly. However, I wanted to make some points about what is going to happen in terms of this regulation. So I believe there are a few things that will be more specified. One of them is like the areas where you can apply AI. So there will be for different institutions across European Union, but I believe also globally, that you will have the catalog of the areas where you can approach AI the way you want, and some areas where you have some limitation, and some areas where you have you will be prohibited from using AI. So that's one perspective. Another important perspective, it will be most probably as the part of the regulation, is the human in the loop concept. So in order to create responsible AI, we as humans, we will ensure that each and every decision-making point will always be involving a human. We will never leave everything to the AI. So that's the second thing. And third thing, I believe, will be also very important, is to assure for humans the ability to recognize what is created by AI or what is created by human, or together. But it's very important that we will have the right to know if this information was generated or it was created by a living person, because it will be more and more difficult to distinguish. That is why it's more and more important for us to have this right. And I believe that in general, in terms of the regulations, these are the aspects that are being discussed now.
Okay.
That's very interesting. Great points, Bartek. I think one of the key things that we should strive to is even more profound, and that we keep our agency, because we rely more and more on AI to decide for us. You know, when you open this Amazon app, it kind of knows what you want to buy next, isn't it? At some point, those things will be connected to sensors on your toilet that will know long before you feel it that you're going to get sick. And so it would make sense that already the medication arrives and is ready at your breakfast before you even feel sick.
There is already a sensor, actually, a company called Weedings, is by Nokia. They have some sensors you put in your toilet. And
yes. Well, that's the obvious replacement for a doctor, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that thing will work whenever you are in that particular place. Mm-hmm. That thing can make analysis way more precise than any doctor would be able by just looking at you. And that can accumulate so much larger databases than doctors as humans ever can manage.
And this is here where it's getting even more interesting, because from one perspective, which I completely agree, these solutions, the technology will prove to be better, even better than our best doctors. But on the other hand, you have humans which probably trust more to other humans. So I think the greatest benefit will be to combine both. So to help doctors to use the tools properly and have both aspects. I mean, the best professional expertise provided by the person to whom you trust.
But actually, for the younger generations, I think in 20 years, they're going to trust machines more than people. Because that happened with the banking. Like, at first, people trusted only the traditional banks. Like, you wanted to do something, you were going to the branch, you were dealing with your money there. And now everyone is using apps. And maybe in 20 years, everyone is going to be using, like, a challenger bank apps, like a Revolut or something like that.
Very good point. We all have children, isn't it? And, you know, you are probably worried about your privacy. Should I post this picture because it shows what I'm eating at home? But children don't have that problem. They have lost the battle about privacy, and they don't worry about it. And because everybody has lost the battle about privacy, it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. So the key thing is, you know, what you probably don't want is that suddenly a robot police shows up at your door and say, okay, you're arrested for the crime that you're going to commit the day over tomorrow. That's not what you want, of course. Yeah. So there has to be some limit. So the agency, or deciding what happens next to your life, even if the robot knows better what is good at you, I do hope that we can make that decision ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. We have last 5 minutes left. Is anyone having any questions? Because I have more. That maybe someone. Oh, yeah, go on. Oh, okay.
Microphone is coming.
Oh, now I'm sitting on the mic, okay.
So there's a lot of talk about AI, and it's like kind of becoming hard to distinguish what's really hype and what's really happening, right? So I wanted to ask you, regarding the specific projects in your banks, where have you seen the most advanced uses of AI so far? Maybe just briefly, of course, I don't think you have time to talk about everything you've done so far, but I'm very interested in Polish banking market and what's happening here with the AI.
That's a question for you.
Okay, so for the Polish banks, there is a lot of potential for automatization, process improvement, and this is in the area of the customer compliance, for example. So to help the process, which is very work intensive, to make it going faster, and using AI can help a lot. The another good example is, for example, for anti-money laundering, know your customer, KYC. In these areas, there is a lot of work with the data from the inside of your company and from the outside of your company. You have to combine the sources, and you have to work with the data which is not fully structured in a way that you would need in order to make the very important decision for the bank. Is your customer performing suspicious activity which is risky and it's using the bank for illegal operations or not? So it's a very important question that the banks have to answer, and in these areas there is a lot of effort, human effort, and it costs a lot. And my observation is the following: the best potential for the optimization are these areas that actually people don't like doing, because it's not creative, it's repetitive, we don't like it. So imagine the case you have to browse each and every customer for some phrase in Google to make sure to find if this person is performing some illegal activity, and you read that. You do that one day, second day, third day. After a month, 2 months, you are not very enthusiastic to that activity because it's not developing you. And we observe the trend that in that areas, there is a lot of space for AI to help with the tasks which are for us not very interesting. I don't know if Philip, you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. But frankly, yes, so the things that are repetitive, that happens a lot, and there you can have massive improvements. But frankly, everywhere in the bank, people are now actively thinking on how to use AI for advising customers, for transactions on the stock exchange, for balance sheet management, for insurance, for everything. People are thinking on how to improve those things. And so part of the story is, of course, banks, they are very regulated, and we have a very strong model risk management procedures and team in HSBC. I'm part of the model risk management team, which basically means that all those things have to come to us for approval. So there are multiple layers in place to make sure it happens in a secure and responsible manner.
Any more questions? Okay, go on. So.
Hi. Do you think the strict data protection rules in the European Union will leave us behind in the, in the AI competition compared to the US, Asia? Yeah, that's my question.
Very tricky question. Honestly, well, everything comes at a price. And if you want to protect the privacy of your citizens, well, maybe some technological developments will happen slower. But personally, it's a price that I'm happy to pay if there is any price. And it's a price for security is very hard. Let's say if we would pay a police officer to regulate the traffic, maybe it just wasted money, but maybe that would have prevented an accident that could have ended somebody's life. And so I think it's a very good thing that we have that privacy approach. I don't think we should ever consider to trade privacy of people for profit.
Yeah, I agree, and I also believe it's a very good question. We have to be aware of that even we need to treat the privacy properly. There is a big race between China, US, and Europe. I don't think this race will stop. I think that will be both. I mean, that we will have regulations which are relevant and proper to protect us, and this will, long-term looking, it will position us better. But in the short term, it might be that this regulation will, to some extent, also limit some of the developments, but not completely, because these things, I think that you cannot stop. And also you have to be aware that there is a lot of interest not only in the commercial area, but the governments and the military is also exploring the technology for their benefits, for our benefits, which means that the race will continue.
Lovely. Thank you. We don't have more time for any more questions, so thank you very much, Bartek, Filip. We were supposed to talk about ethics and ESG still, but Olena, next year we need 2 hours. So thank you very much.